Let's do a quick quiz. Say this word out loud. Did you say interest? Or did you say interest? If you said interest, that's a common error that people make because of how this word is spelled. But this word only has 2 syllables. It's not interest, it's interest. So this is a common pattern we do in English where when we have an ER in the middle that's unstressed, sometimes that syllable just drops, and instead of terest, we just get trist, changes to an R blend. So not interest, but interest. Let's try another one. I'm going to give you another word to say out loud. Say this word out loud. Did you say says or says? Or did you say says? When we say it says, he says, she says, we no longer use that AY pronunciation that we do in I say, you say, etc. So it's really confusing. The spelling looks like says, but it changes to the vowel, says. If you said says, don't worry, that's a common error pattern, and some British accents use more of a says than a says, but in American English, we say this word as says. How do you like the quiz? Let me know in a comment in the chat if you're finding this to be useful. We'll do a few more words, and of course, today we'll move on and talk about your questions for American accent, English pronunciation, fluency. So it is a live Q&A, but I want to start with some questions from me to you instead of the other way around for a change today. Okay, let's try another one. I want you to say this word out loud. Okay, so try this word, say it out loud, then listen. Did you say warm with an AR sound? Warm? My red pen's not working. Or did you say warm, warm with an OR sound? It's actually an OR sound, even though the spelling is letters AR in this word. We say this as warm. It's just like the word wore plus an M. So I wore warm clothes. This is another tricky spelling where when we add a W to words with AR, they usually just say the OR sound rather than the R sound. Same is true for warmth, warning, warn, etc. And you might actually be pronouncing these correctly, but you might have thought you were saying an AR sound, or you might be making this error where you're saying it as an AR sound when it really needs an OR sound. It's because there's a strange change with WAR and WOR words that can be kind of confusing. Let me know, is that one that you knew about, or were you already pronouncing it as warm with the OR sound? Let's try another one. I want to take a look at the word. I won't say it because that'll give it away. It starts with basic. Okay, say this word out loud. Did you say basically with 4 syllables, or did you say basically with 3 syllables? Basically is correct. We only say 3 syllables here. It sounds like the word base plus ick plus ly. Basically. So this is another common error pattern where it looks like it should be basically, right? We have this A here, ali, and instead we really should spell it basically, like we spell some other words simply, right? In a word like simply, we just spell it with ly, simply. It's a little simpler to understand, but in basically, we spell it with that extra vowel letter, but we don't use a vowel sound there. It's just 3 syllables, basically. So that's a common error pattern. If you said basically, don't feel bad. It's normal because of how it's spelled, but it's good to be aware that a lot of these adverbs that end in A-L-L-Y only have 3 syllables. They don't have a syllable for the A sound. Okay, let's do just a couple more, and then we'll move to taking your questions. Let me know what you think of this quiz format and if it's useful for you. And if you're just joining us, you can go back after class or rewind a little bit and see the first few questions. Let me know which ones you got correct, which ones surprised you, and if there's any other words like this that you know about that surprise you between how they're spelled and how you say them. Okay, let's try this one. Say this word out loud. Pretty common everyday word, right? And you probably think you're saying it correctly. But what you might be surprised to know is that this one's very misleading because of the spelling. So again, you might be saying it correctly, but thinking you're saying different sounds, or you might be saying it incorrectly because of how it's spelled. So did you say Wih-min with an O and an S sound? Or did you say Wih-min with 2 I sounds? This one is correct. So even though we spell this with an O and an E, it doesn't sound like men, it doesn't have an O sound. It's pronounced women with 2 I sounds. So it's super misleading, right? It's hard to know. So you might have been saying women, but not realizing that you were using the I sound. So that's great if you're pronouncing it correctly, but it's still good to know what you should be doing and have that association. Or you might have made a little bit of a difference on either of these vowels just because of how they're spelled, especially because we do have the words man and men that follow the spelling rules more, where we do have the a for man and the for men. But in women, we don't follow that rule. We just have the I sound in that second syllable. Okay, couple more. Let me hear how you would say this phrase. Okay, so say this out loud and then tell me what you said. Did you say I should have, or I should have? So many people, number one, might not use a contraction. They might say the full word have. It's not wrong, but it's not commonly used in fluent speech because it breaks up the flow. It takes too long and it gives too much importance to an unimportant word have. So most people will contract it, but the problem is if you're unfamiliar with using contractions, you might not know how to actually pronounce this. It sounds like should have. So we don't have any a vowel once we contract it. We lose both the H and the A, and the VE just sounds like of. It's an sound and a v sound. When kids first learn how to spell this in native speakers, they're pronouncing it correctly. They're saying, I should have done that. They would write it as should of, which is incorrect for writing, but that's actually how it sounds to their ear. So should have, it has the and v sounds. I should have known, I should have been using contractions. Little bit tricky and definitely something that I recommend. I have quite a few resources for using contractions here on the channel and in our Real Talk course on speechmodification.com, so I hope you'll check that out. Let's do one last part of the quiz and then we'll move to your questions and other topics for today. Last one I want to do is, let's see, I have so many good ones to choose from. Let's go with this one. Okay, say this word out loud. Very common everyday word, right? Did you say it with an or sound, work, or did you say it with an sound, work? So letters OR just say the sound in this word. So when we say a word like we were working, these two sounds should be the same. Most of you probably actually do use when you say work, but you might be thinking and noticing this OR, you might be thinking you need to do something different. So in your mind, you might be saying this slightly off or mispronouncing it because of how it's spelled. So just like when we were looking at W-A-R, W-O-R words change. They typically will say the sound and not the or sound. Same is true for worry, world, worth, worthy, lots and lots of words that have the or, worm, they say the sound. So I hope that was helpful for you to kind of see what your reaction was, what you heard yourself saying. You can't always tell when you're pronouncing something out loud if you're correct or incorrect, but you might be able to match if I give you the two choices. And so I'd like to take advantage of that. We'll have some new videos coming up, some shorts that we'll have accent quizzes like this. If you like that, leave me a comment on this video and let me know. If you scored 100%, great, and you still have a question, please go ahead and put that in the chat. I'm going to turn to your questions now. And if you're watching later on, you can always put your questions in the comments. I do go through all of those, give you respond, add your words to my list to cover in future videos, and send you to resources here on the channel and on our website. Okay, welcome everyone. It's nice to see so many of you here on this Saturday morning, getting close to the end of the year and the holidays. I'm looking forward to seeing what questions you have for me today, so let's turn to those now. Okay, we have a question about how to pronounce inherent. And nice to see you here. Thanks for your question. I'm looking forward to seeing you again in January. So for inherent, this is another one where the spelling might be a little bit confusing. So we have this H-E-R. By itself, that would be her, or H-E-R-E would be here. So there's no clue from the spelling what sounds we need. In inherent, it's the air diphthong. So just like in hair or air, and that syllable is stressed, so it's going to be longer and have that clear vowel. Then my in is going to be short, and my inherent, is also going to be short. You're going to have a little tiny or I sound there. It's a reduced vowel in this last syllable. So the IPA for inherent would be inherent. IPA is probably going to show it as a schwa. I think we say it in this case more like an I sound, inherent, or almost like no vowel there at all, inherent. So in the inherent qualities, the inherent tendencies. Yeah, thank you for that request. That's definitely a good word. Fits in with our theme of spelling not always giving you the information you need to know how to pronounce it properly. Okay, we have a question about the word cyanide. So another kind of unusual spelling. Let's look at how to pronounce cyanide. We have first syllable stress, and letter C says the S sound in this word. So letter C typically says S or K in words. The letter Y says the I diphthong, sigh, like in night or white. So I'll write that like sigh, like I sigh. Letter A is going to be an unstressed schwa, unstressed syllable. So cyanide is going to have another I vowel. So the letter E makes the I say its name. So it's another I diphthong. And as I go from saya, it won't be in the dictionary, but there will be a little ya sound there. Cyanide, first syllable stress. Because as I go from an I, high front vowel, or glide to the high front vowel, aya, we just naturally keep our voice on. And as we're going back to the next vowel, the schwa, saya, that little Y sound sneaks in there. You shouldn't have to put it in intentionally, but you might find that if you leave that out, you're going to end up with something that sounds more like cyanide, 2 syllables. And to make sure you have all 3 syllables, cyanide, that vowel to vowel linking is key. Yeah, once you can say cyanide by itself, practice it in some short sentences. So there was cyanide poisoning. We need to label the cyanide carefully. Yeah, thank you for that request. Okay, let's see what other questions we have this morning. Nice to see you. I'm glad you made it. And we have a question about the word pioneer. So we're going to have more vowel to vowel linking in this word. let's break down how to pronounce pioneer. So we have first syllable stress. Letter I does say the I diphthong here, like in the word pie or pilot. I'll write that with IGH, like in night or right, because that's the only thing that those letters tend to say. And then, so paya, the next syllable is a schwa, the sound. Pioneer, and actually, sorry, it's not pioneer, it's pioneer, last syllable stress. So secondary stress on the pi syllable. Pioneer, it has the tense E sound, so pioneer, we stress here on near. And just like we said in the last word, paya, aya, as I move from that diphthong I to the sound, a little y connects them because of vowel-to-vowel linking, pioneer. You won't see it in the dictionary, but that vowel-to-vowel linking will happen. So they were a pioneer in their field. We talk about the pioneers of science and industry. Thank you for that request. Okay, let's take a look. We have a question about they and how to speak its. So we have a word they, and you also wrote this. We don't have a word this, but this word they sounds like it should be spelled this way. So the EY says the AY sound in they. So they say, both of these vowels are the same. They say, they will do it. Yes, and then if this was a typo and you meant to say something else for that word, just let me know. And you also had a question about how to pronounce the contraction its. So let's look at how it is contracts to its, and how do we pronounce its. So basically it's pretty straightforward for its. It's just the it and s sounds, its. So you can just take the word it, and add an s, its. Practice using this in some short phrases so it comes more naturally to you. So you can just add one word. You would say, for example, it's blank, and you could put in some adjectives here. It's big, it's small, it's green, it's blue, it's yellow. It's just so the using it comes more naturally to you. You can also put in some verbs there. It's happening, it's raining, it's snowing, it's going, etc., etc. Yeah, that's a great question, and I do have quite a few videos talking about contractions, how to use them, how to pronounce them, and how to get them to sound more fluent and natural in your speech, because it's a big part of how we speak fluently in English. We rarely say it is unless we're saying it by itself. We're almost always going to contract that to its. So thank you for bringing that up. That's a useful topic for a lot of people. Okay. We have a question about the names Daniel versus Danielle. So typically masculine name, masculine version, feminine version, Danielle. So in Daniel, we have first syllable stress, the a vowel. It sounds like the vowel in cat, Dan. And then we don't do an EL here, not Danielle, but Daniel, Daniel. So the EL sounds end up sounding more like yul, Daniel. And then because Danielle is stressed on the second syllable, we have a clear vowel there. So instead of the EL becoming a yul, reduced vowel, unstressed, we have Danielle, Danielle, Danielle. So the E keeps its sound here, like in red, Danielle. So I met with Danielle and Daniel to talk about something. These names, I don't know of any other pronunciations for them. You do need to be careful with names that sometimes people will have some specific pronunciation for their name that differs from the norm. These are pretty straightforward, and I don't know of any variations, but if you're thinking about a particular person, it's always good to clarify with them. And one way to do that naturally is just say, oh, I'm wanting to make sure I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Can you say your name for me slowly? Or can you listen to how I say your name and tell me if I'm getting it right? People usually are not offended by that. They might prefer to help you get their name right. if it's sometimes maybe uncomfortable where you've been knowing someone for a long time and not sure you're getting their name right, I still encourage you to ask the source and try to get that correct. So thank you for that question. I do have quite a number of names covered in our names playlist here on the channel. Everyday names, unusual names, and of course you can always come to class and ask about specific names as well. Okay, we have a question about so again, the question about the, and I don't know what you're trying to say here, maybe that, but this is pronounced either as the or the, but usually the, and then, yeah, this is not a word. So maybe you're asking about the pronunciation of the word the, and generally we use this when there's a consonant sound following, like the car. And we use this when there's a vowel, like the air. I do have some videos talking about the pronunciation of the, so if that didn't answer your question, or you were asking about something else, go ahead and leave me another note in the chat there. Okay, we have a question about the word silhouette. So here's another spelling, confusing spelling, because we have this H in here, but we don't actually say anything for this H. Does also come from the French, and it does retain one element of the French, which is that we stress here on the et syllable, silhouette, silhouette, but the vowels are different and anglicized in this word. So we have the I vowel for letter I, sil, sillo, and then we have the O diphthong for OU here. With an L, silo, and then lastly, et is stressed, has the vowel and the stress, silo, et. As I'm moving from the O to the silhouette, there's another example of vowel-to-vowel linking, where I'm should naturally have a w sound that connects the two. I shouldn't need to insert that there if you have the right shape of your mouth for the O. Oet, oet. You'll just naturally hear that gliding sound happen. You won't see it in the dictionary, but you don't want sil-oet, sil-oet. That's chops up the word, isn't fluent. When we link, we naturally connect rounded vowels to unrounded vowels with a w glide, silhouette. I saw her silhouette. The dress gives a nice silhouette. Yeah, thank you for that word. Okay, let's see what else we have to cover today. Wonderful to see so many of you here. And oh, thank you so much for the super. It's wonderful to see that. Your support week after week has been really appreciated. So thank you again, and nice to see you here. And please feel free to ask your questions. I'd love to answer them for you. Okay, we have a question about the word robbery, the words robbery and trouble. Yeah, two difficult words. So let's break those down. First, let's look at how to pronounce robbery. We have first syllable stress, and letter O says ah in this word. So that's typical when the letter O is stressed. Words like job, problem, not. Letter O typically says the ah sound in English. So watch out, you don't want to be doing any kind of rounding here, not rob or rob, that'd be more British, but rather just a nice open unrounded ah, rob. So we write that with this in the IPA. And then robbery, robbery. Unlike in our earlier word at the beginning of class, interest, we do keep all syllables here. So I don't really do robbery. I have to keep that in there so I have all three syllables. So robbery. So you can either think of it as robbery or robbery. Whichever one is easier for you to pronounce, it doesn't really matter because this R connects to both the before it and the E after it, uri. I tend to, I think because of being from the Midwest, robbery, I tend to really strongly use that in the middle of words. But if I say robbery, That's correct as well because uri, it's really just that we have that sound. So I think of this making sure that the reason I don't like this one for teaching this is that I don't want robbery, like a really clear vowel here at all. It should really connect into the R, bury. So to get that patterning, you want to kind of start and feel that tight R happening right away in the second syllable. Robbery. But I include both of these because for some people saying re is easy, but saying is hard, or vice versa. So if one of them's easier than the other, just as long as you're gliding together, you're going to be pronouncing robbery correctly. Okay, and then let's look at the other word you requested. We'll take a look at how to pronounce trouble. So trouble doesn't make a lot of sense for the spelling because we have OU here, but in this word, it just says the sound. So if I were to respell it in a way that made more sense, I would just write trouble. And the reason I'm writing this bull this way is that it's got a syllabic L, which basically means there's no vowel or just a little bit of an or sound before it. The L functions as a full syllable, like vowel and consonant together. So first syllable stress, we have the tr, the stress schwa, and then the bull, trouble. I do have a video for this. I can leave a comment for you after class in the description talking about trouble versus travel because travel has the A and the V sound, and then trouble has the schwa and the B sound. If it's the L that's giving you trouble, work on other words like little, Seattle, bubble, bull, kind of getting that sound. You can also think about the word bull. I'm not really holding it long enough to say it as trouble, but if you can get the word bull, then you can get trouble by just saying the bull really fast. Trouble. Yeah, thank you so much for your gift and for your attendance in class and your request. Those are great words that I'm sure will help other people as well as you. Okay, we have a question about how to pronounce accident. So let's take a look at how to pronounce accident. We have first syllable stress. Letter A says the A sound. A. And then the tricky part about this is that we have a consonant cluster here. It's spelled with two C's, but it's actually a K and a S sound. So I mentioned earlier that letter C can say either S or K in English. And in this word, each of these C's says a different sound. So the first C says the K sound, ack, and then the second C starts the second syllable and says the S sound. Letter I says an I, accident, and this last letter E doesn't really say dent. It's not an accident, even though you might get a dent in your accident. You're going to have a reduced vowel here. So in the dictionary, it'll either show as an I or a schwa. And so I would write it here as accident. I would basically write it with no vowel there because that vowel is so reduced, accident, that you just don't want much vowel there at all. So you could write it with an I or a U, but think of it as very short. And then when we make it plural, accidents, then you might not hear this T any longer because when we have, it's called the rule of three. When we have three consonants together at the end of a word, sometimes we drop that middle consonant. So it might sound a little bit more like accidents. You can't really hear the difference, accidents. I can't really let that T out, so it kind of gets lost in the shuffle there. So accidents. I just don't want to make this long like accidents. If my N is long, it's not going to sound correct. So really short N, then kind of no T and the S. There were several accidents because of the ice storm. And then when we go to accidentally, we have a couple of different ways that people say accidentally. So either I'm going to say accidentally. Earlier we were talking about how basically just has the 3 syllables and we don't say that anything for the A-L-L-Y. Here we either say it accidentally as 2 syllables, and if we do that accidentally, we use an aspirated T here, even though it's not stressed. That's because in words with NT, we either leave the T out. So for dental, I either am going to say it as dental, I had some dental work, or as dental with a true T. That way you can hear that the T is there, dental, we had some dental. So same thing happens here, accidental, accidentally, or sometimes we reduce these 2 syllables and we just say accidentally. When we do that, it's going to sound like dently, because we're back to our rule of 3 here. We have the T, the NT, and L all together. We're not going to hear that T, not accidentally, but accidentally. We're going to stop that T. That means our N is going to be very short. So this was a great request. Thank you, because accidentally has 2 different ways that you can say it. I guess you could also say accidentally. We can also just leave this T out. And then it would sound like accidentally. I accidentally forgot to tell you about that pronunciation. To me, that one sounds a little bit incorrect. So I think we usually do accidentally or accidentally. But I think that third one is also used quite a bit. So yeah, tricky because of the NT and then what happens with adverbs that have ALLY and that rule of 3. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And don't forget to practice using accident, accidents, and accidentally, or accidentally, all 3 versions with some sentences. Okay, thank you. Let's take a look at what else we have here today. We have a question about the word really. Yes, so the question is whether or not there's a small schwa there, but it's really just E. Are you talking about here or here? So typically, if I'm stressing on this word, I might use 2 E's. Like if I'm dragging it out, really, but most of the time I'm going to actually use an I vowel, really, because we're using it, we're not stressing on that word. We're saying I've been really busy. It's really happening. So I usually like to pair it with like really hilly, really silly, to match that in fast and fluent speech. Whether or not there would be a schwa, I would say really, maybe you're thinking about the schwa going here. So again, if I'm dragging it out really, yeah, I don't think you really need that schwa there. This EA just says E. So it's like in the word read. 2 letters doesn't mean 2 sounds, it's just the E sound. So either really or really. Yeah, great question. I think I finally figured out where you were asking about for that schwa. And if I was incorrect, let me know. I'll follow up in the chat for me, please. Okay, great. Nice to see so many of you here. It's so wonderful to have these Saturday classes. Your questions and comments really give me lots of ideas for what to cover on the channel. And I'm sure they're helping not just you, but other people who are watching as well. Okay, we have a question about why some people pronounce individual consonant sounds and add a schwa. For example, a T turns into the T, a sh turns into sh, and whether they're correct or not. So if you're talking about when somebody's trying to say what sound this makes, or what sound this makes, the sh sound. People might say this says t because we're not used to just hearing voiceless consonants by themselves. So this sound here is just t, but sometimes your microphone might not even pick that up. I'm not sure if you heard me say t. By itself, it's hard to hear the difference between t and maybe s, depending on the length. Like those consonants, f, s, sh, all of them just have no voicing. So probably what you're noticing if somebody's trying to talk about the sh sound, they might say the sh sound because they're just putting it into something that's more like a meaningful morpheme rather than a phoneme. So a phoneme is just a pure sound, just the lowest thing you can break it down into. And a morpheme is the lowest unit of meaning. So oftentimes that's a word or a syllable, or in the case of saying like sh instead of sh, that might be kind of gravitating towards making it into a word because sh by itself, well, that one actually functions as a word because we say shh to quiet someone down, to shush someone. Yes, but technically these shouldn't have any schwa, any vowel at all if you're just talking about sounds. Thank you. That's an interesting question. Thank you for being here and being a part of class. Okay, we have a question about inheritance. So inheritance. So we had inherently. Inheritance has the same pattern in the beginning of in hair, still stressed on the hair, inherit. And then the tense is going to be, again, almost no vowel here. So if I had to put any vowel in there, I'd put an I sound, inheritance, tense, or inheritance, tense, a schwa. You'll probably see it in the dictionary with the schwa. Same in hair, inheritance, tense, but just use a very reduced vowel there at the end. So she received her inheritance after her father passed away. Okay, very good. We have a question about the S and Z sounds, whether you should feel any tension in the cheeks or lips. So, yeah, you might feel a little bit of muscle action there. Yeah, because if I try to make that sound with no, if I keep this totally relaxed, I'm not really building up enough pressure on a tight enough space to make that noisy. In connected speech, if I'm just talking guests, probably not a ton of tension here. If you're feeling a lot, you might be doing something wrong. But yes, we definitely engage the cheeks a little bit, the cheek muscles for many of the sounds because it's in terms of positioning. The tongue muscles will position the tongue and the cheek muscles will change the air pressure and the constriction we need for certain sounds. So yeah, that's an interesting question. I hadn't thought about that, but that's something that a client of mine recently had noticed, that the cheek muscles are definitely engaged for speech in English, and because a lot is happening in the mouth and not so much in the throat or in the nose in English fluent speech. Yeah, great. Okay. We have a question about Cosmopolitan. So let's take a look at how to pronounce Cosmopolitan. So this is the name of a magazine. It's also an adjective. So if someone is cosmopolitan, they are sophisticated, or they're kind of international, meaning they aren't more like local or unsophisticated. So so cosmopolitan is stressed on the pa syllable. Letter O says the ah sound there, pa-litan. And we have secondary stress on the first syllable here, and this letter O says ah as well, cosmo. The letter S says Z here, cos. And actually this O, I said Cosmo, which we do when we say it by itself. So sometimes people abbreviate the name of the magazine to Cosmo. And then we actually do say that as a mo, Cosmo. But, and they also say it, this is also the name of a drink, a Cosmopolitan. So that's sometimes called a Cosmo. But when we say it in the full word, Cosmopolitan, there's no stress on that one. So it's actually a schwa, an sound. So that sounds like Cosmopolitan. 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 So I don't tend Cosmopolitan. Yeah, so I may flap this and use it more like a D, a Cosmopolitan. I feel like I say the T in this one for some reason, maybe because it's so long, Cosmopolitan. Or because I'm using kind of a syllabic end there, tin, not much vowel in that last syllable. I love it when you guys ask questions that make me question my own pronunciation. I do think that sometimes when we say a word by itself, we might pronounce things slightly differently than when we use it, which is partly why I encourage you to practice in phrases and sentences. Mostly that's to get you to be able to pronounce it when you actually really need to use it. Because if I just practice a word by itself, it might not come out correctly when I'm speaking. So you definitely want to use phrases and words to challenge yourself to get that word integrated. But also, if you hear someone if you ask someone how to pronounce a word and they say it by itself, like they might say water for water, even though they would never really say, I'd like water. They would always say water. So sometimes those flap T's or other vowels or other sounds sound a little different in real speech. For another good example of that would be a word like was. There are probably some people who say was because of a regional accent or differences, but most people, when they're speaking, they're just going to say was. I was busy, I was. But if you ask somebody how to pronounce this, they see it, they envision it, they say, oh, it's was. But they're not really saying I was going. They say I was going. So words in isolation versus in context can have different pronunciations, and you really want to focus on how to say them when you're actually speaking them in sentences, because you're never going to really need to say that word by itself. Okay, that was a little sidetrack, but thanks for bearing with me. Okay, I'm hopefully gonna be able to get to everyone's questions, at least one of your questions. If I don't get to you, please follow up with a comment and I'll make sure to get you resources for your question. And if you've asked multiple things, I'll come back to your second and third questions if I have time at the end. Okay. We have a question about the word party. So in American English, we flap this T. This is a word where the AR does say the R sound, so it is just like the word part or car, far. We have the R, flap T, and then the Y says the E sound. So it sounds like party. First syllable stress, party. We went to the party. So some people have trouble making this combination with the R and the flap. If that's the case for you, try breaking it here as party, because oftentimes that R, if you're from India, wants to roll and be forward like par, and then it's really hard to do the flap. Or you might do party or potty. So British English is more potty. They don't really use that R, they just use kind of the just the vowel part of the diphthong, and they would use an aspirated T. So American English, party. I do have a video for that here on the channel and for other words with those combinations of sounds. So if you'd like to go into more detail, leave me a comment after class and I'll direct you to where you can find those videos. Okay, great. We have a question about humble. So the word humble. Just like in trouble, we have the syllabic L with the B here at the end. Letter U says the sound, first syllable stress. So we have humble. So I would just think about that like the word hum. And then again, our word bull, but really short on the vowel. So almost no vowel there. Humble. Similar to bubble or trouble. Symbol does the same combination. If it's easier to do with the P, simple, humble, all of those have the syllabic L. Good word, thank you. Okay. We have a question about the weak form of can and the strong form and how to use that fluently. So I have a couple of videos for you about this on the channel after class. Let me know if you'd like to see those and I'll give you the link, or you can use the search tools. When you go to our channel page, don't search on YouTube up above the whole YouTube, although you might see my video. But if you search on my channel in my search box, you'll get, you can put in can and can't, and it'll teach you about that. So the weak form of can is what we usually use, because usually we're using can as a helping verb. So rather than saying I can go, we're going to say it more like I can go, I can go. So instead of the a vowel, it's going to have a short little schwa, or basically almost no vowel. I can go, I can teach you, I can talk about it, I can drive, etc. So most of the time, we're going to use this weak form. The only time we're going to use the full form, which is can, I can, is if it's being stressed. So yes, I can go. I'm trying to tell you, no, you're wrong, I can go. I'm correcting you by stressing can instead of the main stress on the verb, the go. Or yes, I can. When it's the last word and it's stressed, it's going to use the strong form and it's going to have the a vowel. Yeah, that's a great question, and it's very confusing with can and can't for a lot of people because it's hard to hear the difference when native speakers are saying one or the other. Okay, we have a question about how to pronounce Santa Claus. So again, let's break this down and let's look at how to pronounce Santa Claus. I do have a video for this. You noticed that at first I said Santa Claus and then I said Santa Claus. That's because there's two ways we pronounce NT. We either leave it out entirely, which sounds like Santa, and so that's very common if we just say Santa or Santa Claus, just like we would say internet instead of internet. So NT words, we often drop the T. If I keep the T, I'm going to want to use a true aspirated T. That sounds like Santa, Santa. People use these interchangeably, so you're going to hear both. They're both correct and they're both fine to use in English. Whatever you're more comfortable with, you can go with. Then Claus has the aw sound, just like a cat's claws, Santa Claus. The main stress is going to be on the san, so it's Santa Claus or Santa Claus, for whatever reason. And we sometimes just shorten it to Santa, as you know. And the vowel is the a. So you could try to match that vowel. Use a word like that's Santa Claus, a Santa Claus hat. That man is Santa Claus, etc. So using that to match. Yeah, that's appropriate coming up. We're seeing Santa Claus here at the end of December. I do think I have a video for that here on the channel. So if you want to go more in depth, leave me a note after class in the comments and I'll direct you to that video as well. Thanks for that question. Okay, we have a question about how to pronounce low, law, liar, and layer. Okay, so low, law. I do have a video for this and several of these words on the channel as well. So again, for more detail, leave me a comment after class. And then you asked about liar and layer. Okay, so this basically comes down to the vowels. We have the O vowel here and the A vowel here. So I would use other words to match, like no, it's too low, or I saw it was the law. So the O is a sliding vowel in English. The A is more open and it doesn't slide. Think of it like an ah, but with rounded lips. So low, more closed and sliding. Law, ah, more open, but still a little bit rounded. Then for liar, we have the I diphthong. And it goes to the and as it connects, you're going to have that little y vowel to vowel linking. Liar. Whereas in layer, you're going to have the a diphthong. So again, to hear the difference between the I and the a, they both slide, but the I starts more open. The a is forward and more closed. So my friend is a liar. I hope not. Say layer. So trying to match other words can help you when it comes down to those vowel differences as well. A lot of these types of vowel differences I cover in my minimal pairs playlist. You can check that out here on the channel. It really helps you refine and hear those small differences between similar words that are only different by one sound or one vowel. Okay, great. It's so nice to see so many of you here. We've got about 10 more minutes, so I'll try to get to as many questions as I can. If you're just joining me or you're watching as a replay, please do feel free to leave questions in a comment, because often I already have a video that covers your information and I can direct you to that, or I can add your word to my list to cover in the future. Okay, we have a question about how to pronounce Garden of Eden. So in Garden of Eden, we stress mainly on Eden. That's the end of the phrase. Both garden and Eden have the D is a flap, so it's a nice light touch, not garden. I don't have to fully block the air. I just bring my tongue up lightly and my voice is on. So garden of sounds like and v. We talked about that when we were talking about should've at the start of class. Garden of Eden. Eden actually is stressed on the first syllable, so letter E does say E. Eden, and almost no vowel for both garden and Eden. If I had to write it as a vowel, I'd write garden or garden, but try to go very quickly from your flap to your N, garden, Garden of Eden. So actually garden, if I'm saying it, here's an example where if I say the word garden, I'm telling you to put that D in, but when I say Garden of Eden, garden, I'm really kind of not releasing those flaps, garden. So it's kind of an unreleased D because this N is a syllabic N. So it's similar to how I would say like button. I don't let that T out. That one's really short because it's voiceless. So to hear the difference in garden, I don't let that D out either, but my vowel is a little longer. So scratch what I said before. I wouldn't use a flap there. I would just use an unreleased D. Garden of Eden. And that goes along with your other words like mountain and fountain. Fountain, we kind of stop the N and use two syllabic N's in that word. So I'll direct you to my video about mountain. It's going to help you with that. And if you leave me a comment after class below the video, put a comment specifically saying your words like fountain and mountain, and I'll send you a link to that video. Okay. Wow, so many more questions. We're definitely not going to have time to get to everyone's today. I apologize, but we are working on a goal today of if we get some super chats, if we get up to 10, then we'll do another live class tomorrow. So if you're really anxious to get your question answered right away, you can do a super chat and we'll cover that in a special extra bonus class tomorrow. Okay, we have a question about, you asked about Jesus and Jesus. So those are both the same. Maybe you meant to write a different word for your second word. So we have the J sound. The E says E. This first S says the Z sound, Jesus. And then it's either an I or an and an S for the second So I'll write that like G, Zus, or Jesus. Yeah, Jesus. The dictionary is probably going to show you this one. I think a lot of people do this though, because the Z and S are so far forward. Jesus. That I think that reduced vowel shouldn't matter too much which one you're using, but whichever comes out naturally for you, you just don't want stress on that one. Maybe you're asking about the Spanish Jesus. That would be like hey, sus. Yeah, that's the only other thing I can think of that has the same spelling but a different pronunciation. Okay, great. So you're asking about Worcestershire, onomatopoeia, and sesquipedalian. I don't think I have sesquipedalian yet on the channel, but I do have the other two, so I'll refer you to that. Those are definitely challenging words because the spelling doesn't really match the sounds. Onomatopoeia is kind of a funny sounding word, and then Worcestershire has like 4 or 5 different correct pronunciations, different ways people say it. So Worcestershire is one, and yeah, so definitely leave me those words in a comment below, and I'll send you the links for my videos for those. Okay, a little simpler. We have aqueous, the question about aqueous. So something is liquid form, aqueous. We have first syllable stress. Usually letter A says ah in American English. In this word, I think probably because it's coming from the Latin, it's going to say actually the ah sound. So we have aqueous. So aqueous. If I move from the E to the I'm going to have a little vowel to vowel linking in there. The ya, the high front vowel going to the other vowel, connects with the gliding ya, aqueous. So in its aqueous form, for example. Yeah, definitely a good word for my science and technical words playlist. Maybe I'll add that at some point for you. Okay, we have a question about counsel versus cancel. So let's look at how to pronounce counsel versus cancel. In counsel, letters OU say the ow diphthong. Cow. Soul. You're going to have a syllabic L there, so it's going to sound like the word cow. Counsel. You can think about that like we were saying, the word bull has the sound, soul, or just really reduced soul. You're just going to go very quickly. Counsel. Yeah, people might use a little bit of a sill here because of how that's spelled. We do have the word to counsel someone. So I'm going to keep your counsel. Yeah, these two are pretty much the same. But then when we get to cancel, the end is the same, but the beginning here has the a vowel, like you can't cancel. So that's going to be the a sound. Excuse me. And then again, sul, either just kind of very short syllabic L, sul, no vowel, or a little sol or sil. So the council meeting was canceled. She was canceled after she ran for student council. Thank you for that request. Definitely close in sound to those two words. Okay, couple more quick questions and then we'll need to wrap up for today. Thank you for those of you who've been here through the whole class, and I hope I've gotten to your questions. As I said before, if I didn't and I missed one of your questions or didn't have time to get to yours, do leave a comment and I'll get you resources on the channel, or I'll cover your word next time. We probably will have a class next week. I'll let you know on the community page closer to the time, depending on what's going on during the holidays for me. I'd like to see you and have a class. Also leave me a comment here on this video if you're going to be around next week and would like to attend class. Maybe you're going to be traveling or busy. Let me know and I'll decide whether or not to host a live class next Saturday. Okay. Yes. So wonderful. So I think we're going to wrap it up there. And again, I apologize if I didn't get to everyone's question, but it's been a wonderful hour with you. Let me know what you thought of the quiz at the beginning. If that was a good format for you, if you learned something interesting there. I'm curious about, how you said those words and whether you're surprised about the pronunciation versus the spelling. And you can watch for some more videos with those types of quizzes and information about those types of written words versus spelled sounds, written words versus fluent speech. I've been making a lot of shorts lately with those, so if you haven't checked out the shorts, you might find those interesting as well. And of course, we do have many many videos here on the channel. We're about to approach 5,000 videos, so I actually may have already reached that. I'm going to check soon and see where we're at, and we'll have a little celebration for 5,000 videos. And I'm hoping soon, maybe by the end of the year, early next year, we'll also reach 200,000 subscribers. So if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, I would really appreciate your support. I'd love to see that number grow and to get a little more reach, let people find out about this class and our videos. Do check out the resources on speechmodification.com. We have a lot of free practice materials there, as well as our online courses that can help you go a little more in depth on these topics for pronunciation, fluency, and American accent. Okay, wonderful class today. So nice to see so many of you here, and thank you for your gifts, your channel membership, joining, subscribing. All the comments and likes and shares also really help the channel to grow, and I appreciate all of it. Have a wonderful rest of your Saturday and a good weekend, and I'll see you hopefully next week, if not in 2 weeks. Do check back in again on Tuesday as well. We have an exciting new video for you. I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com. Remember, if you want to sound like a native speaker, you can do it. speechmodification.com. Bye, everyone. Thanks so much for being a part of class today.